Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to create a slider in Pixate. What I'm going to do is I took a couple things from Sketch's material design template, grabbed their slider, changed the font on it, and we're going to kind of build our own custom one. And I'll show you how to get this so that it drags over all the way and the highlight fills in, and then the numbers change based on the location on the scale that you're at. It's very easy to do. So let's get started. So I'm building this on an iPhone 6. That's the canvas size that you're going to want to select when you create your new file. And I've gone ahead and placed the assets from the asset packet into Pixate. If you don't have that, follow the link to my website in the description where you can download the packet from there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the slider up, and then we'll set up the this value background that pops up second. So I'm going to come in here, and in my assets I've got track and highlight and knob. Now I'm going to place these on the screen. I want these to be in the center. So I'm just going to click. I'm actually going to go into my layers panel. I'm going to use an action for this. I'm going to use the align center horizontally. I'll just place it right in the center. I'll do that for all these. Select it again. And this. And then I'll place these kind of on top of each other. I'm going to pull this up so it's easier to get to on the screen. So they're on top of each other. We'll place this on top. And now they're outlined. We got our tracker set. The way that this works is the end of this highlight right here is going to be attached to the center portion of this knob, and then as it slides, the highlight is going to move off. There's a couple ways that you can do that. One is you can just make a new layer that cuts off, lays on top and cuts off and hides the blue or the track. But what we're going to do is actually make a container and use a clipping mask. It's cleaner, and if you're just throwing this into a prototype, like maybe you want to just build this and save it for later, so that you can just import it into another project of yours later. This is a much better way of doing this. So I just made a new layer. I've got it about the full width of the track. We'll measure and see. My track is 288 pixels wide. So my new layer needs to be 288 pixels wide as well. And then they need to line up. So my highlight and my track are at 44 pixels in, 296 pixels down. And so this layer is a new layer. This container is a little bit taller. It's okay. We don't care about the height. We just care about the width. We want them to match. So I'll rename this layer track. And let's turn clipping on. Set it to transparent, and we'll turn clipping on. And then I'm going to pull in the highlight for this. And then the track. Okay, so now that I've got that placed in there, I'll close this up. I'm going to keep knob on top, so I'll reorder this layer. And I'll move it up so that it's aligned in the center. And then what I'm going to do is move the highlight and drag it over. I'm just going to hold shift and left on my arrow key, drag it over just so that its right edge is right in the middle here. So then we can set the interaction for this. Now what I'm going to do is come into my interactions panel, click and drag, where is it? Drag, add drag to it. Let's say that I want to be able to have this go horizontal, and we'll set its minimum left to 42 pixels, then its maximum left to 315. So now I can drag this, pull it over, it'll stop over here. I measured that out before. It's kind of hard to grab, it's small, but then it can go over this way. And then if we come over to highlight, make sure that highlight is on top, and then add a move animation to this. All we have to do is set it to move continuously with rate with the knob. So we'll say with knob's drag position, continuously with rate. We'll reference the horizontal center of the knob, and then we'll move the, you can choose any side direction here. We'll just say right. The rate, -1 or of 1. And now as I drag this, it moves. Since it's in a container, it's being clipped off, so you can't see that highlighter moving to the left. And now it holds on to our slider knob just like that. It's very easy. So we can close this up, and now we'll build the kind of the pop-up value background that's above here. I'm just going to place this in the center. Place it right on top. I'm just going to place it a couple things here. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to have this scale up and move up when the slider starts to drag, and then scale down and move down when we release it. So we can set those animations first before we put the numbers in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want this to move along with this track as well. So I'll add a move animation. We'll just call this slide. And just like our highlight, it's going to be based off the knob's drag position, continuously with rate. We'll select the horizontal center. Select the horizontal center with this as well. Leave it as a rate of 1. So now it moves. And then we can add our scale up and scale down animations. So I'll add 2 scale animations to this. We're going to this first one scale up. Second one scale down. And scale up is going to be based off of when the knob starts to be dragged. So we'll say drag start. Scale up to 1. And I'm going to have it anchor at the bottom. So it's going to pop upwards. And I want this to spring. I want this to be kind of fun. So I'll add a spring easing curve to this. And we'll use a tension of 400. Because 500 is just a little too high. They can close that up. And for the scale down, it's also going to be based off knobs drag release. Tell it to go back to 0. We'll click the same anchor point so it goes back down that way. See 0 scale. And we'll just leave the linear duration here. So now, since it's already at 1x, I'll come up to my properties, change that to 0, and now we can test. So there we go. Pull and drag it, pops up. If I release it, it drops. So now we've got this set so that it moves, this pops up and when we start to drag and goes down when we stop. So now we can set the numbers in it. Come back into our layers panel and we've got 1 through 10 in here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull these in, drag them all kind of towards the center, but we're going to use the actions in Pixate to set these all in the center. And we're building this all in the center because it's easiest to align everything since everything in this prototype is center aligned. And then at the end we'll move it over to the edge so that the slider can start at 0. So I'm going to come in here and for each layer I'm going to select the Align Center Horizontally action and click Run. So we'll do that for all 10 of these. And now that I've done that, let's make a new layer up top, drag it below the numbers. Resize it. I'm going to drag it down and put it behind the numbers right here so we can see them since they're white. I'm going to make this nicer. There we go. And then we'll set the numbers so that they're all at the same height. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy one of them, doesn't matter. I'm grabbing mine from 1. I'm going to go through and paste the height, the y-axis on here for each one. So now that I've got all my numbers in here, I'm going to make a new layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a container for these numbers. So I'm going to kind of put it over here, size it. The size doesn't really matter. I just want it to be centered over this knob. And I'm going to make this transparent. I'll rename this layer to numbers. And I'm going to put each layer, each number layer within that numbers container. Then what I can do, I'm going to minimize this. And then I'll move this background to the very, very back so it's not in the way of our track or our knob. Let me pull everything here. So now if I drag this, see these numbers pop up with this container. So now I'll just kind of move it. It looks like not a couple pixels up, maybe a couple over. Looks pretty good. And now for the tricky part. Now this isn't actually hard to do as much as it is tedious. The only difficult part really is figuring out the range of sections of which numbers or in which the numbers need to appear and then disappear. But once you figure out that range, it's very simple, and I'll show you how to figure out that range. But first what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the opacity for every single number. What I can do is actually grab the top layer, hold Command, and grab or click each layer, and drag the opacity down for all of them. So then I can click and drag a fade animation to each of these. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have these numbers fade in and out based off of the position of this knob in reference to throughout the duration of this track that we've laid out. And the way that I figured that out is like this. If you watched my tutorial on how to build a smart scrolling, a smart horizontal scroll, this is basically the same method. What I did is I took the width of the track that we have, 288 pixels, divided that by 2, which put each section at 29 pixels width. I rounded it up to 30 to make it easier. And then I figured out when this section starts. In our case, that's at 42 pixels in. And then when the furthest pixel to the right ends, which in our case is 333. So then I know that if I start from 42, there's a 30 pixel area in which number 1 should show up between 42 and 72. Then number 2 should appear between 72 and 102. And then we build up from there. And then what we do is we say when the knob is outside of that area, fade back down to 0. And so when you slide over, it'll fade in, and when you slide out, it'll fade out, and it will look perfect. Now before we continue, let's rename this knob layer just to knob. We'll remove the PNG, and that's going to make our conditions easier in the future. So what we need to do is we're going to start with 1. Let's first set this based off knob's drag position. I'm going to say continuously or with duration to final value. And the condition that we're going to use, we're going to come in here, we're going to type knob.cx. That's for the horizontal center, which means across the center of it, so it's this way on the knob, up and down. The center of this, whenever it crosses these thresholds, we're going to be telling the numbers to turn on. So this CX, if it's greater than 42, and 2 ampersands, knob.cx is less than 72. So if it's within the area of 42 and 72, fade up to 100. We're going to do it instantly, so we'll leave it linear with a 0 duration. And so now if I test this, if I grab this, drag it, see when I get into that area, this 1 shows up. So now what I need to do is say that when I get out of that area, I want this to turn off. So I'll click Add Condition. I'm going to copy this layer, or this layer's condition, paste it down here, and it's a matter of changing 3 things. We're going to change the direction of the first caret to say less than. Change the second one into a greater than. We're just turning them around. And then we're going to change these ampersands into or. Then we'll say fade down to 0 and make the duration 0 as well. So now if I drag this over, I get in that area, it goes on and off. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do this for every one, and as we go up from 1 to 10, we're going to increase the number range by 30 pixels. So I'm going to copy this first one up here again for number 1. I'll go into number 2, make it based off of knob's drag position with duration to final value. Paste it, say to 100. Let's change this range. So now we're at 72 to 102. So we added 30. Change that duration to 0. Click Add Condition. I'm going to copy that again, paste it in here, and just switch around the values. So the ampersands turn into or, and then the greater than turns into a less than, and then the less than turns into a greater than, fades to 0 with a duration of 0. So just simple steps. We're going to do that for each one. So now we see these fade in and out, just like that. So I'm going to do that for each and every layer. I'm going to skip over this, but for each one, we're going to go increase 30 pixels. So 72 to 102, 102 to 132, 132 to 162, and continue up that way all the way up to 10. Okay, so I've gone and I've placed everything in here. So now on layer 10, it should be, your fade animation should be knob, drag position, with duration of final value. So say knob.cx is greater than 312 and knobs.cx is less than 342. Go up to 100 with a duration of 0 seconds. And then else if knobs horizontal center is greater than 312, or if its horizontal center is less is less than 312 or greater than 342, go to 0 with a duration of 0 seconds. If you've done that for each one, what you should get when you drag is this, a scaling slider. And I can look, it's a little off center. I'm just gonna pop the pixel over. But other than that, it looks pretty good. So now all that's left is I gotta remove this background. We don't need it anymore. I can minimize this. And now we'll just move this knob over to the center and the highlight to the center. So we'll just put the knob over at 42, which is where it can start. And then the highlight track, put its left at -274. And that should be perfect. So now if I begin to drag, pull this over, oops. And then I can move this value back over here. I'm going to resize this and drag it over to the center. Right like that. Set its scale back to 0. So now, if I start to drag this will move over, and we've got a working slider. I can drop it, try it again, pops up. Just like that. So that's all for making this slider. Like I said, it's not too terribly difficult. We learned how to use a good clipping mask and create a track, and then we learned how to make a kind of really simple but fun and springy value background, I believe is what it's called. I'm sorry that I haven't been updating as frequently. I've been really busy lately with a bunch of stuff, but I do have a new tutorial, a longer tutorial coming up. And this one is a completely custom interaction. It's based off of something that I did as a side project, and there's a write-up about it that you can read along with it. So I'll be posting that here pretty soon as I get that done. And then I want to say thank you to the people who have responded to my survey and who filled it out. I really appreciate that. A few of you in there have said that you would like it if I gave you some tasks to do or some homework. So what I'll do is, if you can make a custom slider and perhaps change some of the animations that occur, because if all you have to do is just continue using these conditions that we've set, and you can do anything. You can make them move, you can make them rotate, you can make them flip, you can do whatever you want, as long as you just use these same conditions that we used for the fade, and you can create some cool stuff. So if you make something based off this tutorial and tweet it at me, I will retweet it and we'll get some exposure on it. I'd love to see it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Mommy, let me get in your ear. Let me sprinkle you with some of this here. You're a cutie pie butterfly. I just wanna see you smile.